My phone buzzed, and when I glanced at it, my father's name was on the screen. The message hit like ice water. I disown you. All communication through my lawyer. I stared at the words as if they had been etched in stone. Then I typed a single, deliberate reply. Okay. I closed my phone and turned to my laptop. Calmly, methodically, I began severing every financial tie I had with them. The $2,500 automatic mortgage payment went first, followed by the family cell phone plan, then the business credit line I had co-signed. Every connection I had to my parents' world I cut, quietly, professionally. 2 days later, my mother called, her voice panicked and tremulous. But I didn't answer immediately. I poured my coffee, watched the steam rise, then picked up the call and put it on speaker. "Lakeland, what did you do?" she shrieked. I waited a beat, letting her catch her breath. "I was disowned, Melissa. All communication goes through my lawyer." There was a stammer, a gasp, a clattering of kitchen utensils on the other end. Then she hung up. Within minutes, my phone erupted. Texts from my brother, my aunts-in-law. "You're pathetic. Dad is ruined because of you. Fix this immediately. Whatever childish game you're playing, stop it and apologize." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth had teeth, and I was about to sink them in. 48 hours before my father's cold message arrived, I had received an unexpected email from my Uncle Jeffrey. The subject line read simply, "Look at this. Must have sent it to the wrong person." Attached was a shaky, handheld video from a family dinner at my father's house, an event I hadn't been invited to. I pressed play. The camera swayed slightly, voices overlapping. Aunt Stephanie laughed at something off-screen. My father, Gregory, held a beer, smirking. "She's a good kid." My uncle's voice came from behind the camera. "Helping you out like this?" My father laughed, a low, cruel sound. "She's not a kid. She's an ATM, a lonely ATM. She'd pay for the air we breathe if I asked her to." My brother Brandon joined in, clearing his throat. "It's pathetic. She thinks sending dad money makes her important, but she's still just, Lakeland." They toasted to my absence. Laughter rippled across the room. I didn't cry, not then. I had spent my life auditing numbers, exposing hidden truths behind neat facades. And now, for the first time, I was auditing my own family. The sums were staggering. 4 years ago, my father's restaurant supply business was on the brink of collapse. Days from foreclosure on the house I grew up in, he and my mother called me, pleading, "You're the only one who can help, Lakeland. You're the responsible one." I had obliged, every month $2,500 toward the mortgage. Over 4 years, it amounted to $120,000. A small fortune extracted not through kindness, but through obligation. You have to understand the invisible chains of growing up as the scapegoat. When you exist in a family like mine, love is transactional. Affection isn't given, it's earned. My worth was measured in usefulness. Paying the mortgage wasn't generosity. It was a tax, a toll I paid to survive their anger and manipulation. Why endure it for so long? Because this was normalized cruelty. In families like mine, roles are rigid. Brandon, the golden child, was untouchable. His failures were accidents. My failures were character flaws. My function was to absorb the blame, shoulder the anger, and stabilize the family's crumbling structure. I had reached my limit. The video had shattered the last illusion. I wasn't a helper. I wasn't valued. I was a tool, a human ledger. The first ripple of their panic came on a Tuesday morning. My mother's call went unanswered 3 times before I finally picked up. She sounded frantic. "The bank just called your father. The mortgage payment was rejected. You need to fix this right now." I let the silence stretch between us. Finally, I said flatly, "I was disowned, Melissa. All communication goes through my lawyer." The line went dead and the storm of texts began. Each one tried to minimize, shame, or guilt me. Childish game. You need to apologize. Fix this immediately. I didn't react. I simply opened my laptop. Fingers poised over the keyboard, I drafted an email that would set events in motion. The recipients. Every member of my extended family, including the ones who had laughed at that dinner, and key members of the community who knew my father through his management of a local medical fund. Subject line, refinancial support for Gregory. The email was clinical, concise, and merciless. I attached a ledger of every payment I had made over the past 4 years, $120,000 in cold, documented numbers. I attached the video, raw and unedited. The message was clear. All support had ended, permanently. Sending it was not revenge, it was accounting. I had closed their books, and for once, the numbers spoke louder than words. Within hours, the first responses arrived. Not apologies, but threats. A law firm representing my father demanded a $75,000 retraction, accusing me of defamation and harassment. Their intent was to intimidate me into compliance. I didn't flinch. I forwarded the threats to a Denver-based family law attorney, known for her ruthless efficiency. Within days, she confirmed my suspicions. The statements were true, and the threats were empty. But she also saw an opportunity. "I can investigate his books," she said. "If you're right, there's more than just family drama here." That night, my cousin Natalie called, trembling. She revealed long-buried truths about my father's abuse. A pattern of predation, secrecy, and complicity had persisted for decades. The laughter in the video, the casual cruelty, the ATM comment, it all clicked into place. This wasn't merely a toxic family. It was a network of enabling that masked a criminal pattern. I finally understood. My parents' house, their laughter, their authority, it had been a veneer covering calculated exploitation. And I, the scapegoat, had been both punished and coerced into maintaining it. The revelations didn't stop with Natalie's call. That night, I got another unexpected call from Dana, my late mother's closest friend. She had seen the email I sent and the video. Her voice was heavy with sorrow. "Lakeland, your mother would be so proud. You finally did what she never could." I listened as she described what I already suspected. Gregory wasn't merely controlling. He had been a manipulative, abusive husband. My mother had suffered silently for years, financially drained, belittled at every turn. And now, seeing my father's behavior mirrored in his treatment of me, it became clear. I wasn't just a scapegoat. I was the next in a long line of victims. By morning, the community began to stir. The $60,000 embezzlement from the medical fund my father managed wasn't going to stay secret. It took only a few days for the story to circulate. The fund, set up for Mrs. Harrison, a local woman battling cancer, had been siphoned by my father over 3 years. And all the while, I had been sending him $2,500 every month. Brandon, ever the golden child, panicked first. In a desperate attempt to control the narrative, he took to Facebook. His post rambled, pleading, and full of his usual self-justification. "I can't believe what my sister is doing to our family. She's always been jealous. Now this is a new low. She's framing our father to steal his house." He didn't realize that by posting, he had confirmed everything. He admitted my involvement as the auditor who had access to the accounts and effectively authenticated the $60,000 figure. Worse, he implicated himself in a cover-up. His entitlement shattered under the weight of reality. Within hours, my lawyer called. Her voice carried an unusual mix of triumph and caution. "Lakeland, the Harrison family is filing a criminal complaint. Gregory and Brandon are both named. Brandon's post made it painfully clear he was complicit in the cover-up. Your email and the evidence you provided have made this airtight." The situation had escalated far beyond a family dispute. It was now a criminal investigation, and I had become an unwilling catalyst. A week later, the confrontation I had anticipated my entire life arrived, not with drama, but desperation. Gregory appeared at my apartment door. He looked diminished, unshaven, sleep-deprived. His once commanding presence had vanished, replaced with something smaller, fragile. "Lakeland," he said, voice trembling. "They're going to arrest me. The police are involved. You have to help me. You're my daughter. You're the auditor. Please, tell them it was a mistake. Just give me money for a better lawyer." I studied him. The man who had called me his ATM, who had disowned me with a single text, now begged at my doorstep. I said nothing. Slowly, I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" he asked, his hands shaking as he unfolded it. It was the criminal complaint. I watched his eyes widen as he read the charges. Then they landed on the second name listed, Brandon. "You should give this to his lawyer too," I said quietly. His head snapped up, confusion and terror etched on his face. I shut the door without another word. The okay I had sent weeks ago was a quiet act, but it had set a chain reaction that no one, not even I, could have fully controlled. The aftermath was methodical, like watching a carefully planned audit unfold. The legal threats my father had sent vanished the moment my lawyer sent them documentation of the embezzlement. Gregory's threatened lawsuit evaporated. The criminal case, however, proceeded with brutal efficiency. Brandon cracked first. Facing charges for conspiracy, he accepted a plea deal. In court, he painted himself as a passive participant, a son following orders, a victim of his father's authority. He avoided prison, but his reputation crumbled. Debts mounted. The community's perception of him shifted overnight, from golden child to coward. Then came Gregory. Without Brandon to shield him, and with my meticulously documented audit notes in the hands of prosecutors, the trial was more procedural than dramatic. Evidence of the embezzlement, paired with my email and the video, made the case irrefutable. Gregory was convicted of felony fraud. I didn't attend the sentencing. My lawyer informed me he received 3 years in state prison. With the family imploding, the house followed. The property I had saved with $120,000 over 4 years, the house my mother had cherished, was foreclosed and sold at auction. It fetched a fraction of its value, a final testament to the financial recklessness and deceit my father had propagated. While their world collapsed, mine quietly began to stabilize. A week after Gregory's sentencing, I was summoned to my boss's office. I anticipated a conversation about bad press or workplace drama. Instead, she offered me a promotion, Senior Director of Audits for the entire hospitality group. "Lakeland," she said, "I don't know the details of your personal life, but in the past 2 months, you've handled immense pressure with integrity and professionalism. That's the kind of leadership we need." I walked out of the office, promotion in hand, standing in the glass elevator overlooking the Denver skyline. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. It simply felt solid. My worth was no longer debated at a dinner table. It wasn't transactional. It was fact, documented in a new contract, in a new office, on a new floor. The ledgers were finally balanced. I didn't attend the auction. I didn't need to. I heard about the house, about my father's release from prison, about Brandon's attempts to repay his legal debts while working in a warehouse. I never heard from any of them again. That $2,500 a month, the peace tax I had paid for years, I redirected. Investments, self-care, and quiet indulgence became my new ledger entries. The silence I cultivated was different from the oppressive quiet of my childhood. This silence wasn't weaponized. It was peace. I began writing, not audit reports, but my story. A small blog titled The Scapegoat's Ledger became my outlet. I shared experiences of financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and transactional family dynamics. I offered guidance for others who, like me, carried invisible burdens for the sake of family harmony. The response was immediate, overwhelming. I wasn't alone. There were thousands of Lakelands out there, people maintaining their families' facades at tremendous personal cost. Each message, each comment, confirmed what I already knew. My story resonated because it was universal. And if you're listening, if this strikes a chord, know this: being the responsible one isn't a weakness. It's a strength, but it should never be a burden. There is a way out. You can reclaim your peace, your finances, your dignity. You can close the books on toxic relationships while maintaining your integrity. Begins with quiet reflection. For the first time in my life, I was free from the obligations that had defined my existence. The house was gone, my father was imprisoned, and my brother's golden child facade had shattered. Their world had collapsed, but mine was steadily rebuilding. I started with small things, investing the money I had once sent to my parents. The $2,500 a month became a tool for growth, not for survival. I enrolled in professional courses, bought books I had long wanted, and treated myself to things I had denied in a life consumed by family obligations. Every purchase, every investment was a quiet declaration. I was no longer theirs to manipulate. The blog, The Scapegoat's Ledger, took on a life of its own. I wrote about financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and the insidious ways families exploit those they deem responsible. I shared the mechanics, tracking every transaction, every payment, every small sacrifice. Readers responded immediately, sharing their own stories of being the responsible one, the fixer, the peacemaker. Thousands of messages arrived, from people who finally felt seen. The pain we endured was real, but so was the strength it had given us. In the following months, life settled into a new rhythm. My apartment, once just a place to sleep, became a sanctuary. I learned to enjoy quiet mornings, cups of coffee without trembling hands, or anxiety about overdue bills I shouldn't have been paying. I walked through the city without the burden of their judgment, without the constant reminder that my worth had once been measured in dollars. Occasionally, news about my family trickled in. Gregory served his sentence, his name now synonymous with fraud in our small community. Brandon continued to struggle, burdened by debt and a tarnished reputation. I didn't gloat. I didn't seek revenge beyond the legal truth. I had simply reclaimed my life. Work, however, became the anchor I hadn't realized I needed. As Senior Director of Audits, I oversaw a team of professionals, guiding investigations, balancing complex accounts, and mentoring younger auditors. The integrity I had maintained in my personal life translated seamlessly into my career. Colleagues who once admired me quietly now looked to me as a leader, someone whose judgment was unshakable under pressure. But it wasn't just about career growth. It was about peace of mind. For the first time, I wasn't negotiating my own self-worth for someone else's approval. Every decision, every boundary was mine. No longer did I ask permission to exist fully. I simply existed, and it was enough. One evening, I received a message from Natalie, my cousin. She thanked me again tearfully for exposing the truth. "You saved me from a lifetime of silence," she wrote. "You showed me that it's okay to put ourselves first." I responded simply, "You always had the courage. You just needed to see it in action." Dana, my late mother's friend, remained a guiding presence. She would call periodically, checking in, offering encouragement. Her words reminded me that what I had done was not just about personal vindication. It was about protecting the vulnerable, standing against abuse, and demonstrating integrity when it mattered most. Even the quiet victories were satisfying. The blog grew steadily, attracting professionals, survivors, and even young adults trying to navigate their own toxic family dynamics. I received messages from people tracking their own ledgers, documenting financial contributions, emotional labor, and the invisible work they performed to maintain peace. They shared stories of liberation, of finally saying no to demands that weren't theirs to bear. I began to understand something crucial. Being the responsible one had never been a curse. It had prepared me for this. The meticulous attention to detail, the ability to remain calm under scrutiny, the knowledge of when to act and when to step back. All of it had been honed in the crucible of my family's dysfunction. The skills I had once used to maintain their lives were now tools to build my own. Eventually, I revisited the ledger that had started it all. I looked at the $120,000, the spreadsheet, and the video I had attached to that fateful email. There was a strange satisfaction in seeing it, not as revenge, but as truth. I had documented the reality of my experience, laid it bare with precision, and finally closed that chapter. No anger, no bitterness, just acknowledgement and closure. I didn't need to see my family again. Their absence was a relief, not a wound. And in that silence, I found something more profound than freedom: clarity. I had always been conditioned to seek validation from those who were incapable of giving it, but now I measured my worth in deeds, achievements, and integrity, not in the approval of people who had never truly cared. There were moments of quiet reflection when I thought about what had been lost: the years of stress, the personal sacrifices, the emotional labor. But those thoughts didn't weaken me. They strengthened me. Each moment of suffering had been a lesson in resilience, an education in self-reliance. I had survived a life of manipulation, financial abuse, and deceit, and emerged intact. In the evenings, I would sit at my desk reviewing audit reports, sometimes drafting blog posts late into the night. I wrote not just for myself, but for the thousands who had reached out, who saw their own experiences reflected in mine. I offered them guidance, strategies, and reassurance, that they could reclaim their lives too, and that silence was not weakness. It could be peace. For the first time, the silence in my life wasn't oppressive. It wasn't a tool of control or punishment. It was a space I had claimed for myself. Every morning, every decision, every moment of quiet was a reminder that I no longer belonged to anyone else but myself. The story of my family, their collapse, and my liberation became part of my identity, but it no longer defined my value. I was no longer the ATM, the scapegoat, or the responsible one forced into submission. I was Lakeland, auditor, writer, survivor, and finally, fully free. The ledgers were balanced at last, not just the numbers, but my life. And in that balance, I found peace, independence, and a future I could build without fear or obligation.